Hello, comrades. We bring you episode 113 of Block Digest. Today, Sunday, July 15th, at block height 532,040. Hello, say hello to everyone, Comrade Rick.
Hello, Comrade Chernobyl. No, I'm not good with the Russian accent, but yeah, hello from Colorado. How y'all doing today?
Comrade Janine.
Parlez-vous Russie?
Not Russia. She's at the World Cup.
All right. So yes, I want before I get into this, I just want to say to everybody watching, I know you watch this show for Bitcoin news, for technical understanding of things. So I want to say right off the bat, this first story, it is unavoidable to some degree as far as me bringing my politics into the show. So sorry for that.
I've been trying to avoid this story for so long, and I can't believe it just made its way into us. Like we really do kind of have to talk about it, and it's like aggravating because it made me dig into the scab that I've formed over 2016 and everything. It's just it's bonkers. Let's get into it though.
Mm-hmm. So sorry if you are political in any way and do not share my positions on things. Sorry, but this story, there's really no way around getting into it. So, Russia! 12 Russian agents have been indicted for hacking the DNC and using Bitcoin. This has been blasted all around Bitcoin social media, all around Twitter in general, all around the fucking mainstream media. I mean, it's absurd. Like you even have a Democratic congressman going, "I've been warning people about this," and it's completely absurd. And like point blank, and to be frank, it is completely devoid of any evidence whatsoever or anything resembling an actual perception of reality. Like there has not been a single concrete piece of evidence in 2 years presented by absolutely anybody that the Russians hacked the DNC remotely. Nothing. Like, and this is something I have been following very closely, looking at every memo released from the Senate Intelligence Committee, looking at every document pushed out of Congress or fucking like publicly pushed out there by any federal law enforcement agency, the intelligence community. There is not a single shred of evidence. The closest thing I have seen to evidence is, well, Russia Today said some stuff disparaging Hillary. How is that hacking an election? How is that hacking the DNC? Like pointing at memes on the internet and going, this is some covert operation that's going to change the vote somehow. Like this meme is somehow going to break into a voting machine and change the tally of the votes. Like that's it. There's no fucking evidence. However, if we look at this Nation article from last year, we can see a large degree of evidence disproving a remote hack. So there is a group called VIPS, the Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. This group has been around since 2003 and is actually pretty much the one group to do the most in-depth analysis of the mishandling and falsification of intelligence information regarding the Bush administration in 2003 and their anthrax evidence that Colin Powell so famously held up in front of the United Nations to justify invading Iraq. And this group, and specifically the individuals in this group who've actually gone over the data with the DNC, includes people like damn it, first names. William Finney, a predecessor to Snowden, as far as NSA leakers, who've actually in-depth broken down a lot of the illegal privacy invading programs that were finally blown open with concrete evidence after Snowden dumped his documents. But yeah, so despite no evidence existing for a remote compromise of the DNC, despite the fact that the FBI literally has not even looked at the servers compromised, the FBI has performed absolutely no forensic analysis of anything involved in this supposed or alleged compromise of DNC computers. We now have indictments being filed. We still 2 years later have this fucking narrative flying around everywhere, just stirring up rabid insanity in the population about how Russia has literally put Trump into office. And I mean, love the guy, hate the guy, I don't care. Like, there are many valid reasons to think he's a piece of shit as a person. There are many valid reasons to look at him as a decent person. There are many things he's doing that there are lots of valid reasons to disagree with. And there's many things he's doing that there are very valid reasons to agree with. But this fucking accusation that Russia literally remotely hacked the DNC has zero evidence. And if we go and look at this analysis done by the VIPS organization, well, let's break down the metadata analysis. So 2 people anonymously approached this organization, I think around July in 2016, that were involved in the actual case inside the FBI. And yeah, pretty much what they found was that there's no way in hell that this hack was remotely done. First off, the first piece of evidence is the Lucifer, the person being bandied around as the Russian agent who admitted to remotely compromising the DNC. Well, he dumped his documents. Multiple things were found in these documents that do not match the story being pushed regarding a remote compromise on any level whatsoever. First, the smoking gun, supposedly, that points to Russian involvement in this is literally just a few of the documents, not even all of them, had the contents copy and pasted, literally just copy and pasted, and moved into a blank document format that had in the metadata Russian as the native language. That's the smoking gun that definitively points to Russia's involvement in this hack.
Jesus.
Okay. Now, as absurd as that is, let's dig further. There's also evidence in the metadata of these documents showing how quickly that these, in terms of data rate documents, were actually transferred off the DNC servers. Well, that shows roughly, 22.7 megabytes per second was the data rate transfer of these documents being moved from the DNC server to another storage medium. Okay, well, let's look at this. 22.7 megabytes per second. We can look at internet service providers around the world and the speeds available. And that's exactly what one of these forensic analysts did. Speeds averaged at the best ISPs available in the first half of 2016, 15.6 and 14.7 megabytes per second. That's not matching the metadata in the documents. Okay, so here let's look at this situation more in depth. Lucifer claims that he remotely compromised the DNC servers from Romania. So across the Atlantic Ocean, behind multiple proxies attempting to hide his origin. So each of those linkages are going to have their own bandwidth capacity, their own throughput, extra latency. So even looking at the best possible speeds, 15 to 14 megabytes per second of data, you're now going to have to drop that estimate because of where he claims to have done this from. Okay, bullshit. Now, look at the speeds, 22.7 megabytes a second. What's that? That's with your average USB 2 device, the average data transfer speed of moving something locally to a USB storage device, i.e. somebody physically at a DNC location, physically accessing a computer internal to their network. And now keep in mind, these are people, this organization VIPs, that have a decades-long history of expertise in the intelligence community, from signals analysis to, in one of their cases, literally Soviet espionage. Like, not only are there experts in terms of the technical analysis of signal intelligence, but experts specifically in dealing with Russian intelligence activities. Now, when you look at all of this analysis that has literally been floating around for more than a year, that has never been addressed by the fucking DNC, by Congress, by the Senate Intelligence Committee, by any intelligence agency whatsoever, you still have this claim being bandied around that the DNC was remotely hacked by Russians. And the real cherry on the top for me is this article posted in The Nation, which generally has been a very liberal, left-leaning media outlet. Let's scroll all the way down. What's this? Editor's note. After publication, the Democratic National Committee contacted The Nation with a response, writing, in quotes, U.S. intelligence agencies have concluded the Russian government hacked the DNC in an attempt to interfere with the election. Any suggestion otherwise is false and just another conspiracy theory like those pushed by Trump and his administration. It's unfortunate the nation has decided to join the conspiracy theorists to push this narrative. And now we have Bitcoin getting dragged into all this shitstorm.
Yeah, so what implicates Bitcoin with this new thing?
Glucifer, the person being accused and admitting to, air quote, admitting, remotely hacking into the DNC servers, used Bitcoin to purchase servers and other infrastructure to be able to, air quote, pull off his hack. And I would like to also note something in the timetables involved here. WikiLeaks pre-announced the dump of this data. They gave like a heads up that this data was going to be, dumped. Bam! A day later, this guy Glucifer pops up. Next day, bam! Claims he remotely fucking hacked the DNC. Bam! I'm from fucking Russia. There's ties to Russia. All of this literally within 2 days of WikiLeaks announcing they're going to leak this data. And in hindsight, with shit tons of forensic evidence completely discrediting any fucking, any perceivable, perception that this was a remote hack, and showing an amount of supporting evidence that this was an inside leak. And now Bitcoin's being threaded into that. Now, not only does this whole aspect with Glucifer just reek of pulling a patsy out of their ass because they got a heads up from WikiLeaks that this data dump was coming. Now they're threading Bitcoin into it. They're dragging us into this.
So, I mean, are they actually saying, it's just this Glucifer 2.0, it's just like a statement released, or do they have, addresses or anything, that they're looking at? Or is it just hearsay that Bitcoin was used to purchase these servers?
They have a number of records of the servers being purchased using American
But it's all pseudo-anonymous, right? I mean, I don't know. To me, it just seems like they still can't have a hard time actually pointing to saying yeah, this was purchased for hacks in Russia, which I really hate saying, just because to me the whole thing really screwed up with the server. I was in the Army for a while. I worked with SIPRNet for a little bit, and the regulations on that, whenever you're there, is it's highly regulated. And when all this information started coming out back in late 2015, early 2016, I was digging into it because I was somebody that was of keen interest as far as what was really going on behind the scenes. Like a lot of our viewers, it's we don't just listen to the narrative we're told, we start digging into it. And, as soon as I started really digging into it, it was Obama and Hillary. So you got a president and a secretary of state at the time colluding to go around the DOJ, around the FBI, around the CIA, around the NSA, the entire DOD, and setting up this server in an insecure location is just like the most treasonous thing, because I don't think people understand the access that CypherNet has. Like, I mean, this is where information like data is gobbled up, metadata, and, you know, like you want to, you know, look into somebody, what they're doing, you know, you want to see what's going on in the world with drone strikes. This is the network that they use, and they put it in an insecure location that, yeah, it could have been compromised, and it was probably compromised, but not probably from some Russian intelligence. It's like, you know, you have members of the Secret Service working with you whenever you're doing these sort of elections. And the Secret Service, and as much as like, you know, the military is kind of like, you know, a stick for the government, there's a lot of guys that signed up for the military, you know, because they have an interest in protecting the country and what the country stands for. That's kind of where, you know, I found myself in a confusing position after a while, because you kind of put in a wedge there where it's like, are you going to do the thing that the stick wants you to do, or are you going to do the thing that you signed up to do? And there's guys in there that signed up to make sure that the country was going to be run in an efficient manner. And you do the most reckless thing that I really just want to start cursing about, because it really makes me like the battery acid in my back of my throat about people sitting in jail right now because of, you know, leaks where, you know, you got guys like Snowden in Russia because he took information that he thought the American people should know and let them know about that. And, you know, you got, yeah, just a terrible war on whistleblowers from that administration in the previous administration. And to be clear, I'm not right or left, and I'm not really in support of either of these parties anymore. But I mean, like, there's just so much there whenever you start to look at the corruption within the DNC and the 2016 election. And, you know, yeah, it was a huge upset, such a big upset that you want to try and justify the upset, because you were saying right before the election that this is 100%, this person's getting in. And, you know, everybody that was on the ground in the middle of America knew that that was horseshit. I mean, well, we figured, you know, it's kind of one of those things where even the people that were in support of Trump and people that were in support of just opposite to what the DNC was pushing, you know, everybody pretty much was like, well, this looks like this is going to happen. We were all shocked. And in that shock, they have still yet to admit to their collusion against Bernie Sanders in the primary, other than like just like statements here and there, and people like Debbie Wasserman Schultz stepping down and then getting hired by HRC somewhere else, and all these different people within the DNC that have just, you know, been involved in a lot of different crimes throughout the spectrum. And it's really something where, as someone who fought for the country and went overseas and seen some terrible things that I had to go through with while in uniform, that something that I stood up for, it really, 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 really aggravates me to see these sort of assholes not only, you know, just still trying to just push a narrative that is a response to their big upset in the fact that they lost this thing. And it really, it's like, you know, as somebody that, I don't know, it's like you want to see an accountability moment, some moment where there's some real accountability held for what happened in 2015 and 2016. And for the past 2 years, all we've been hearing, you know, I don't hear because I just stepped away from all that crap, but people outside that I walk around with, the first thing they want to tell me is, yeah, Russia, Russia, Russia. And it's like, yeah, I looked into this, and, you know, there's no real evidence there for this. It's just, and the people speaking it have been in a war against what this country stands for, as far as a right to privacy and a right to free speech, and, you know, not having a tyrannical government. I mean, that's what the United States was formed to avoid, a tyrannical government. All right. So I think, I don't know, this whole freaking story, man, it stops at the server. So like, you want to talk about how that information got out of that server? I don't care. You did something highly illegal just for that thing to be set up. So, you know, yeah, bringing Bitcoin into the story, it really just shows like how, you know, peak crypto is in the middle of politics. I mean, like right now we've been seeing the SEC, the CFTC constantly making statements and updating their positions on whether or not these things are securities or commodities. And, you know, now we're seeing much more of a on the ground brushing up with power and electricity, you know, and, you know, citizens and how much they, you know, they want to invest in this new economic growth sector of mining. And, you know, people are starting to weigh all this stuff on different levels. And I don't know, for this whole thing to pop up in this story, it's really just like, I don't know, it's like we're the popular thing and just got caught up in this tornado of stupid. And I mean, like, you know, yeah, I guess that's all I'm going to say, man, because this stuff really does. It's just like, it really, really, really aggravates me. It's hard for me to just like even try to focus on the topic other than like, I'm mad. I'm mad.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, getting dragged into politics is inevitable. I mean, I really think in the next year or two, like, we're going to be Nazis, air quote. But Janine's got a little more information as far as like the forensic analysis and stuff to go over.
Yeah, so I was actually just reviewing because I can't actually remember what they said specifically if they did the forensic analysis. I only know that they, so basically this is, if you're interested in this topic, from actual security researchers who, you know, analyze the situation. They may have done forensics on actual machines, but I'm not completely certain of that because this talk was at the end of 2016. I don't quite remember the entire presentation, but I do remember the most significant thing that they said during the presentation at Chaos Communication Congress was that they said that a hack was unlikely. If you want to show, there's actually a picture of the slide where they say that. I think it's the bottom one. So this is the slide from their presentation. It says that the election probably wasn't hacked. That was after they went through an entire presentation about why they came to that conclusion, because they also, the primary thing that I know they did was they actually did a recount. So they, you know, that entire thing. And they concluded hack was unlikely. That doesn't mean that the voting system is not vulnerable. They pointed out a number of vulnerabilities as to how a hack could happen, but based on the results of their recount, they think that it's pretty unlikely that a hack took place because, you know. So if you're interested in actual security researchers who analyze this, like over, it's almost 2 years ago now, I would recommend looking at this talk. The title of it is, I believe, let me quickly check. The title is Recount 2016, an uninvited security audit of the US presidential election. So this was over 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago now. You know, that it wasn't really a surprise to people there. But what they liked about the presentation was the fact that, you know, they tried to be as neutral as possible, and all of their conclusions seemed to bear out from the evidence that they collected and the recount that they did. So I would definitely recommend looking at that talk. That's really, I mean, that's all I have to say on this. I don't have too much to say on this topic outside of the fact that I just think it's hilarious in a way that the U.S. is being so what's the word? They feel so entitled to this idea that, you know, they should have, the U.S. should have election integrity, but at the same time, you know, they get themselves involved in countries all around the world. They mess with people's elections all the time. You know, plenty of evidence of that, and yet, you know, they get angry about their own election getting messed with, or the possibility of it getting messed with. So personally, I'm not in any way emotionally involved in whatever the result is of this. I don't care if the election was manipulated or if it wasn't, because, like, I'm sorry, that's just what governments do. Like, governments all around the world do this all the time. It's not a surprise to me. It wouldn't be a surprise to me if it did happen. It wouldn't be a surprise to me if it didn't happen. I think the chances, just based on the evidence, are that it didn't happen, and most of this is just media hysteria around Russia. Especially what frustrates me is that the hack of the DNC and the hack of the election are conflated, and people assume automatically that they are the same actor, which is not necessarily the case, because from, I mean, what we've seen, the motivations of releasing Podesta's emails, there's not the same advantage as actually like influencing the results of the election. So yeah, that's something that bothers me, is that people conflate the two and assume that they're probably the same actor, which I don't think there's evidence for that either. That's even more suspect. So that's all I really have to say on this topic.
Let me tell you, it's like the information is really the thing that bugs me, is like the fact that this is going on. I mean, it's like we're spending all this time talking about what happened with this information, when the reality is it's like there are thousands of people dying every day from opioid overdoses. There's leaks going on in not like oil leaks going on in the Dakota pipeline. Flint, Michigan still doesn't have clean water. Like, this country is falling apart, and we're talking about BS. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Final note before I move on to the next story I'm covering is there's actually the only concrete evidence whatsoever of any attempt to penetrate actual voting systems I've seen was the Department of Homeland Security attempting to penetrate voting infrastructure in Georgia, while giving no explanation when confronted by the Georgia government, multiple times. So the only evidence I've seen is one of our agencies. And I might add, an agency that has a huge degree of influence from the Obama administration directly, attempting to compromise voting infrastructure. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so compromised from so many different places, man. It's like there's the geopolitics side of things, but I mean, like, reality is it's just like that. The huge amounts of lobbying efforts going on, just like completely unrestricted, is like, yeah. I mean, you have basically that military industrial complex that could keep lobbying to keep things going however which way. There's just so many different areas. And I mean, the election fraud itself, like even the way the election is held, it's either a black or white, either your guy wins or your guy loses. There's different things that are just like all set up for failure. And that's why I'm in Bitcoin, man, because I mean, like, we got to step outside that system and create something that's more functional, because this is all BS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the only other comment, I can't remember who tweeted it. I'll have to look it up, but someone on Twitter made this comment about how, they made a counterclaim about all this FUD about Bitcoin being involved. And they said that, because of the if we didn't have the transparency in Bitcoin, we wouldn't have even found this stuff out probably. So what we should actually do is force all politicians to use Bitcoin so that we know where their money is coming from. And while I think that that's, it's a funny idea, and I would, because, we know that their money is not coming from as clean of sources as they present. But I would disagree with actually implementing that in practice, because like the reason I got into Bitcoin, or one of the reasons, is because it is a voluntary system that is not being forced on anyone. It is something that people choose. And so as much as I would want transparency of funding from politicians, I wouldn't want to sacrifice the voluntary nature of Bitcoin by having it forced on people just to make it more obvious to the world how criminal they are. Yeah, so that's my only. I thought it was an interesting tweet that someone made regards to all this stuff, but I would say I would still not agree with actually doing that.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways we could clean this thing up.
Mm-hmm. But I guess sliding along. Ledger. So I'm sure everybody's aware, like somewhat recently, Ledger's kind of expanded from the end user systems to their Vault product, which is kind of specifically tailored for like organizations or businesses like exchanges. But they're also pretty much looking at another investment round, and are purportedly getting some interest from Google, Siemens, Samsung. So a number of different technical giants, and as well financial giants, which it kind of makes sense when you really look at it. Like any kind of serious financial institution is going to be looking at how to actually manage the security aspect of dealing with cryptocurrencies. And then as far as like big tech companies, I mean, there's obviously money to be made in the security aspect of cryptocurrency specifically, but also, you know, devices like that have a lot of potential utility outside of just cryptocurrencies themselves. Like for instance, account authorization, like two-factor authorization, maybe attempting to make things like key management for systems like PGP a little more user friendly. But the big push they're really moving into is partnering with a financial company, Nomura, in Japan, and pretty much trying to go into a full-on custodial product for institutions. So just kind of thought this was like an interesting thing to look at, considering a lot of the big companies in the space. You know, BitGo kind of started out tailoring products for that kind of thing. Zappo and Coinbase are starting to move into custodial products for institutions. And, you know, it's kind of interesting to see this kind of push from the actual hardware manufacturers in terms of key management devices. And you know, I'm kind of interested to see how this really is going to play out in the market aspect of things, because really at the end of the day, like the hardware for managing these keys, like that is the linchpin as far as security of funds. And I mean, even, you know, companies like, you know, Coinbase and BitGo and so on, like, you know, they have to manage the key generation process. They have to manage the actual signing process. And at the end of the day, to really build up to any kind of serious volume, such as like financial institutions are likely going to bring to the table, you really have to not have those kind of isolated and scattered. Like, you know, Coinbase has a really interesting blog post from a few years ago about their cold storage setup. And you can really see, like a lot of it boils down to kind of doing things without really directly looking at products like a ledger. And like, how is that competition going to pan out when you have the company who's kind of started out from that hardware angle of things and really tries to scale that up beyond the individual user, versus like a company like Coinbase that's mostly coming, you know, from the other side of like that's not their specialty. Their specialty is really the market-based infrastructure side of things.
Yeah, man. I'm, you know, this, I really need to pick up a ledger and, you know, yeah, it's just like you're saying, you know, there's like we were saying, you know, crypto Bitcoin is the popular thing. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's not that surprising to see guys like Google and everybody trying to find their way into the system. And, you know, guys like Ledger have been working for a while to do proper key management. And I'm sure, I don't know, I'm sure it'll be you know, a good thing as far as developing, you know, are these hardware wallets. I mean, Trezor's been solid, and Ledger's been one of those where I've heard some, you know, I mean, even we did a little bit about that Schrodinger and the back door, and, you know, there's like these things that are possible, but it's like such a really like a mission impossible thing. And yeah, it's just good to see, you know, I don't know. It's like Google, honestly, it's like I'm not too excited to see Google jump in the place like we were saying earlier. I don't know. I'm still kind of just getting over the last story, and I'm thinking about these different companies. Sorry, I'm kind of choking on my own rage here. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have been requested to load a Janine thought mid-episode.
Yeah, so I just want to point out, you know, I consider Ledger to already have custodial infrastructure because they use Intel SGX.
That was our Schrodinger in the back door, right? It's the SGX.
Yeah, I mean that is so. You know, I can make no claim as to how dangerous Intel SGX is for Ledger's particular architecture, but I can tell you that Intel SGX is not something you want in your hardware wallet. So
yeah, that's the only thing where it does kind of worry me when you see hardware wallets where people do use proper key management, you know, and like, you know, guys like us say like, hey, you know, these are the sort of devices you get your, and then you see a company like Google jumping in and, you know, SGX and, you know, it's falls in the past. And I don't know, it's one of those things where really small back of the mind, I do kind of worry about those things, but I don't know, like we were saying, it's really kind of a mission impossible thing. So, Yeah, I think it's real small, back of the mind problem. I don't know. I mean, how much worry do y'all place in that?
Well, I mean, it's like it's really like about trade-offs, like especially when you start getting into like big institutions and like really the spectrum of ways you can go about it. You know, like I forget which episode, but like we recently covered like the Zappo where they're literally repurposing like a mountain vaults set up as nuclear shelters. And I mean, it's like it's pretty. It's like the spectrum between like absolute security and absolute convenience, and like where do you really want to kind of put yourself on there? And I think
Right.
it's really going to be interesting as far as like institutions, how that really plays out, because that really is going to have kind of implications as far as like access to liquidity and like how like actual financial products can be interacted with and built on top of that. Yeah, I mean, you know, like if you really go like crazy all the way to like absolute security, like a mountain shelter or something, well, like when you run out of like liquidity accessible in the hot wallet, which is likely going to be minimized to like a single digit percent if you're really taking like your security and your exposure seriously, well then you have all kinds of friction as far as like moving money out of that cold storage to make it accessible. And like, you know, are our customers going to be okay with like that time preference trade-off of not being able to receive something if they still continue like an order book functioning when they don't necessarily have immediate access to that in terms of like getting it out of cold storage? Because like you can put it there easily, but getting it out is another thing. Versus like how comfortable will they be in making trade-offs as far as like, you know, moving more towards the convenience where you can quickly access it. Like that's because now you're opening yourself up to like potential hardware vulnerabilities or like design flaws, like potential firmware flaws or bugs, or like even like potentially like physical attacks, like if you aren't taking like the physical security that crazy like paranoid. And it's like, you know, where is that going to really kind of play out institutionally, because all of these things will really have an effect on like immediate access to liquidity and kind of the amount of trust that consumers or, you know, customers dealing with those kind of products will have to accept in dealing with a specific institution.
Yeah, that's one of the really, I don't know, interesting things about Bitcoin too, is like the cold and hot wallets and like these in between states, like, you know, the open dime's kind of like been said as a warm wallet. I mean, like, yeah, and these super cold wallets, you know, and it's like, yeah, and also just like, I guess, you know, really like one of the things that also just like, it's like you could break it up, right? It's like you could have some in a ledger, some in a Trezor, some in a super secure multi-sig cold storage in a mountain vault. So that's an interesting aspect too. It's just like all these various modes of security, and it all sort of depends on your need to access liquidity. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, you know, it's something to keep an eye on. I'd say for sure. But you wanna take us into your story, Janine?
Yeah, what's some super secure cold storage?
Yes. So I think everyone here would agree that security testing is of vital importance, not only when it comes to the cryptography and the protocols within Bitcoin itself, but also in how wallets function and how they're designed. And security is definitely not an area where you want to go around making unresearched recommendations or guarantees for the ordinary user, especially without, you know, considering their individual circumstances, and if it involves large sums of money like thousands or tens of thousands of dollars without first testing that threat model or software or hardware. That being said, Jameson Lopp has responsibly done his due diligence beyond probably what most people are willing to do, and released the results of some stress testing he did on metal hardware wallets, including Bill Fodl. Very interesting name. I would love to know what Fodl is. Bill Fold, I assume. Crypto Steel, Crypto Key Stack, Cold T, and BitKey. Sorry if I mispronounced any of those. Most of them are pretty phonetic. So he not only evaluated them based on usability, but also judged whether their security and durability claims, especially from like a metallurgy perspective, were sound. He begins the post by talking about how, you know, he expects certain metals to perform, or certain forms of metal like stainless steel to perform better than others. For example, from a usability thing, some of the things he noted was that a lot of them required buying, or some of them required buying extra tools that were not included, but they were still necessary to either engrave or stamp or whatever the process was, the seed words properly. Some didn't appear to have enough contrast against the metal background, so they may be hard to read. With etching, maybe the space was too small, or there was a risk that you would make a small mistake and write the letter in a way that it could be ambiguous, and that would be a problem when you're, you know, doing a recovery. But obviously the most exciting part of his testing was probably the fact that he bought a torch that was capable of achieving 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit, which he notes is more than twice the temperature of the average house fire. So keep that in mind when he's doing the testing. So the results for the fire resistance were Bill Fodl, fail, Cryptosteel, mostly success, but some letters did fall out, so that's basically considered a fail because it's data loss. Cold T, fail, and Bitkey, success. He also tested corrosion resistance by dropping them in acid for half an hour. It doesn't look like he reported on individual results, but he basically just posted pictures of what happened. And it appears that most or all of them failed. And a common problem with both the heat and corrosion testing is that while the larger pieces of metal forming the wallet might be okay, the quality of the screws tying any pieces together was a major weakness. So even if the metal quality seemed to differ, you know, across the design. Then he did crush tests with a hydraulic press capable of creating 20 tons of force. And under that kind of pressure, the best performer was Crypto Keystack and Cold T, which didn't have any data loss, and Bitkey. Bill Fodl and Cryptosteel failed because the letters came loose while he was prying it open. Who knows how well it stayed intact, you know, when it was unopened, but that would mostly be considered a fail, because if you can't open it, that's also data loss. At the conclusion of his testing, he offered a subjective, but still backed by actual experience and evidence, a rating system for each type of durability test, and the best performer was Bitkey and Crypto Keystack with straight A's, followed by Cryptosteel with a B, and then Bill Fodl and Cold T with overall C's. He also comments at the bottom, I had high hopes for Crypto Keystack from the start, but Bitkey surprised me mainly because I expected that having the data exposed on an exterior surface would make it more likely to be destroyed by various stresses. I underestimated the robustness of laser etching. And I believe he also makes some recommendations for how a better metal hardware wallet could be designed in the future. But yeah, I definitely appreciate that he did this, because the only metal hardware wallet that I've heard of was Cryptosteel. I had actually never heard of the others. So that's definitely a good thing, because, you know, if a paper for the average person is probably best, you know, in terms, depending on the amount of Bitcoin. But if you have a sizable amount of Bitcoin, it would make sense to probably replace the paper, because obviously, you know, anything you do with paper is not probably going to be more resistant than metal, unless you're putting the paper in a fireproof safe that is itself resistant to this kind of stuff. But if you can't get a safe and you want to get these, this is definitely useful for you, because, you know, you should consider how durable the metal is to different kinds of attacks. So yeah, this was definitely interesting, and I was really surprised that there was actually so many different types of metal hardware wallets.
Yeah, it looks like across the board there was an A for each one of those methods he went after. So I guess if you had one of each all locked up in some super secure mountain vault, then some corrosive tornado, hurricane, fire came through there, you'd still be able to make it out with all of them. So I don't know. It's like yeah, seed storage is and, you know, making sure that that's secure over time is some very important work, and it takes some real myth busting. And Jameson Lopp's not afraid to get his hands dirty. So yeah, I really appreciate that work done there, and we can kind of see a better way to secure that. So awesome job, Jamie.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, it's definitely the kind of shit that needs to be done. Yeah, I mean, if you're in this space for the long haul, like you're looking at potentially decades of like having to ensure the security and like reliability of backups you make for things. And I mean, we've only been around for 10 years. I mean, like there's all kinds of circumstances and situations that people haven't considered, maybe haven't thought of, that like even if like experts or people really thinking through the security aspect of like handling your keys have, like most normal people haven't and aren't going to take into consideration when they set about like choosing a method for backing up or storing things themselves. And I mean, it's like this really is important, like Max Kaiser in the chat said that this reminded me of Mythbusters. Lopp was just having fun. I mean, yeah, I don't doubt that this was a lot of fun, but like this is seriously important things to really flesh out best practices for people in the long term, because frankly, like right now, we are nowhere close to having anything even resembling a best practice. And I mean, at the end of the day, like I think it's going to be frankly impossible to really have a universal best practice. I mean, like I could right now come up with like I could rattle out like half a dozen different methods of like generating and storing keys or mnemonic backups that I've thought about that I'm pretty confident would keep me safe from the NSA, unless they put a torch to my balls and made me actually decide to give it up. But advising something like that for grandma is pretty much guaranteeing she's going to lose all of her coins, because it's too much complexity mentally, too many things to keep track of, just too much stuff to have to interact with like regularly to really keep that secure, that she's not mentally like competent in. Like the areas that she would have to interact with are just too much of an unknown or unfamiliarity for her. And like one thing I would like to see Lopp maybe test is somebody just getting a blank piece of steel with I forget what they're called, but like you can actually get like letter prints that you just pound into something with a hammer, like something that somebody could actually do in a single thing without like the complexity of something like crypto steel, that you could do at home without needing advanced machinery, and see how that would stand up to things. Something that's a little more accessible to people, not requiring, potentially dangerous interaction with like complex machines, or having to trust somebody else with access to information because they don't have access to those machines themselves. But like this is really something like the development of sound practices and like the research in this field. And I you might like not think that's serious to call this a field, but it is. Like it's not going to stop anytime soon, and it is pivotally important to continue doing things like this, because that like this is the point of failure that is unavoidable. A user dealing with their keys, like that is on the user, and there is absolutely no getting around that. And it is pivotally important to have actually sound researched education to actually provide people, because like everybody in the world isn't a rocket scientist, and if we really expect this to become a globally used currency, like we can't just expect everybody to figure this shit out themselves.
Yeah, also the R&D of just like finding a better way to do it, right? I mean, like Jameson went through all that process, and like he's got some better ideas, right? Like you're saying, you got your own ideas. It's like everybody's kind of got an idea, but until you like, do the testing and see what works and what doesn't, it's like really hard to figure out, if this is going to work. So yeah, that whole part of the thing is also very very productive too. It's just it's like the best practices stuff. I think we'll be working on that for a long time. And like we're saying, there's all these varying degrees of security there, and so and needs. So it'll be we'll be working on this for a while. And it's like it's a good thing to go ahead and take the initiative and do this sort of stuff, because you're gonna you're working out some things we need done in the space. So good job again.
Mm-hmm. And it's it's really important to like recognize that spectrum. I mean, like it might be the perfect thing for like young people in Venezuela to like have a software suite set up where they can literally generate entropy with a coin or a die and manage keys themselves. Like, you know, keep things memorized, like potentially come up with, you know, learning techniques to just memorize something and that's it. And but like that's not going to work for grandma, you know, in a country like America. Like for her, like it literally, it might be the best solution for her to have a custodial solution, or maybe something where you have a multi-sig set up with like members of her family where they have the ability to spend things themselves. Like where if grandma loses her entire like portion of a key setup, like, you know, her son can actually still get those funds back and ensure that she has access to it. Like the tool set needs to be really expanded and really acknowledged as more like an ecosystem with niches. Like there will never be a universal best practice. There will be different practices for different people, and all of them have to be explored and really ironed out and developed.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done there for sure.
And definitely when you're in the process of figuring out what best practices are, you should definitely take some time to look at what other people who are studying the same thing for years have also said. Because, you know, collaboration is good.
Yep, that's always the starting point. Check the history before you.
Mm-hmm. But I don't know, Rick, you want to take us into this update going on in New York State?
Yeah, let's do a little transfer back over. We did this special edition of the digest with Jonathan there from Quebec, talking about you know, their rates and how recently there in Quebec there's been talk about raising the rates for mining operations and possibly sort of the business leaving. And so I saw this and wanted to really kind of dig into it because, like I was saying earlier, it's like, you know, we got the SEC and the CFTC really kind of defining these things, but now we're kind of seeing this on the ground where, you know, there's such a urge to get into mining that you're seeing a lot of people jump into that. And, you know, we're seeing the blowback on that. And, you know, it's work that Jonathan's doing there with like trying to figure out energy consumption on mining and a better way to present that information. We'll probably do a lot better job at educating the public because right now it's like, you know, these mining operations come in, people are scared about, you know, what exactly is Bitcoin? Like you're spending all this money on our energy on nothing and it's going to raise our rates. So, yeah, so back in March, we saw a similar thing with the state of New York taking action against mining operations in the form of rate hikes and threats of moratoriums there in the northern part of the state. And, you know, that's like we're saying, that's the growing trend right now. And so that's the ground floor for the fights. And it's kind of like, yeah, it's where the politics and Bitcoin and, you know, just how exactly energy companies issue these contracts is important. So like we were saying there in Quebec in that special edition, there was a lot of people who were submitting large amounts of megawatts that they wanted, like, you know, unfeasible amounts and unfeasible size mining operations. So it looks like the New York Public Service Commission is going to approve these on a case-by-case application basis for those miners up there in New York. Which, you know, I guess that's the right step to take it, at least like you're actually doing a little bit further investigation into whether or not the people, you know, providing these applications actually have the need and, you know, really can fulfill that request for that amount of consumption. So, yeah, John Rhodes, the commission chair, said, as a part of our continuing effort to balance the needs of existing customers with the need to attract new companies, we must ensure that business customers pay a fair price for their electricity, for the electricity they consume. However, given the abundance of low-cost electricity in upstate New York, there is an opportunity to serve the need of existing customers and to encourage economic development in the region. And so to qualify for the new rate, which like we haven't really gotten like a clue yet on what exactly the new rate is, but to qualify for the new rate, miners must exceed a demand of 300 kilowatt kilowatts and a load density of 250 kilowatts per square foot per year. So they also must provide proof of benefits attached to their consumption. And yeah, this is all going to start on July 17th. And I actually did a little bit of digging into, you know, some of the mining operations that were talking up whenever back in March, and seeing what exactly they were saying about this. And I haven't really seen anything yet about this application process and how exactly they're handling this, because even if they're in a case-by-case basis, there's still basically guys picking winners and losers there. And, you know, I mean, there's a possibility that, you know, they will get flooded, and then they'll have to pick a winner and loser scenario because maybe they've only got so many megawatts and they're issuing it out on a case-by-case basis. But is the cat around? Oh, I don't know. But sorry, got there. So yeah, it is something where, like I'm saying, this is really kind of an interesting part of the space right now, is where miners are coming in and they're dealing with local governments and people on the ground there. I mean, like, we've seen this Bitcoin just jumping into different areas of politics. You know, it's people skirting sanctions and the way that they could do that, and you know, people wondering if they're trading a security or, you know, a commodity. And now, you know, this is the one where I think it kind of brushes up with the population the most, and it does give us a good opportunity to educate people, because yeah, it's like the amount of misinformation on power consumption and what Bitcoin's doing there. It's like we really need to figure out a way to better educate people on that, and a way to where people can really see the value proposition of, you know, not just the mining and the mining farms and residential mining, but it also brings in people to help, you know, technicians fix the miners, and like different supply stores to make sure that the parts are going to be able to be replaced there. It's something that could be good and beneficial. I mean, like here recently we saw in Colorado that huge facility from Intel, you know, being bought from a venture firm to start a mining operation there and lease out space with their substations. It's this is a really, really big growing part. So I'm going to try and keep my eye on this. I'm going to keep my eye on what the miners, you know, are saying about this in New York, and hear what, you know, what they have to say about it. You know, starting in a couple of days, I think we might start getting a little bit more feedback from it. And you know, also keep your eye on what's going on in Quebec, because you know, we might see some businesses leave the area and head to New York, upstate New York, if the case-by-case process seems to be going well and fairly done and issued. I think it'll be interesting. We might see some politicians, you know, get voted out because they set certain people in positions to issue these contracts, and they're issuing it in an unfair manner, and it's hurting the population. So this is certainly an area of the space to keep your eye on. It's just like mining and mining operations working within, you know, local populaces. So I'm going to do that and see, keep you updated.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's, you know, especially like looking at the stuff in Quebec. I mean, like it sucks for individual miners when you really look at like how things like this could potentially affect individual operations. But like this is a really important aspect of Bitcoin in the long term. Like it's like this literally is like arbitraging energy prices. And I mean, in the long term, you're talking like 10, 20 years, like low power somewhere, miners will migrate there. It'll level out the prices. And then once that really starts happening, you'll see them go somewhere else, or like maybe even leave that area. And I mean, really in the long term, like looking at this on the time scale of like decades, like this will start smoothing out energy prices really anywhere that mining takes place. And I mean, it's, you know, it might not seem really obvious thinking about it, but like the more that really happens, like the more that really makes it easier as, you know, an entrepreneur using energy, period. Because like when you really scale that out to like the craziest extreme, like as somebody starting a business, like energy is a big part of that. Like what is your electricity bill for your operation going to be? Like whether you're literally just providing some service or literally manufacturing something. And the more we see this kind of smooth out and Bitcoin eat up those inefficiencies, the more equalized that kind of opportunity cost analysis is going to be, regardless of where you are. Like in the long term, if this really does just like smooth and even out energy prices all over the world, like somebody looking at the electricity cost in providing some service or manufacturing something won't be that much radically different in some place like, you know, Venezuela versus the US. And that'll like it really like kind of opens the door as far as like what kind of entrepreneurial activity you can engage in depending on where you're at, and like the cost you're dealing with and the kinds of gains you can look at. And I mean, like it's like it's cleaning up the noise in price signals, and like Bitcoin is going to do that in a number of different ways in the long term. This is just like, you know, a very important one of them.
Yeah, and I mean, like, this is where we're going to start seeing a lot of developments. I mean, like, a lot last year, you know, we saw a lot of developments there with the SEC and the CFTC kind of coming up and saying, like, what these things should be, what these financial instruments should be labeled. I really, feel like we're going to see a similar thing this year with a lot of these mining operations coming online, and people, you know, either... This is where it's like the education is the most important thing, because like those things come online and there's already a strong contingent of, you know, people that feel like Bitcoin's destroying the environment without any real purpose. And, you know, they've got a lot of good information on their side that's easy to digest. So it's really, we need to come up with the proper ways to educate and ways to say this, you know, what we're doing there. That way, you know, hopefully, you know, like you're saying, I mean, they'll just pick up and move somewhere else, though. I mean, like if the local population does, you know, kind of do a knee-jerk reaction, you'll just see that innovation move elsewhere. And, you know, it's that's where it's like Bitcoin's inevitable, man. Like this thing is like it's built, it's working its way into geopolitics on multiple levels. And, you know, yeah, it got caught up in this thunderstorm of that headlining story just for not any reason. I mean, like, you know, it's making its way into the system, and it's something that, you know, I'm glad to see it. Hopefully it'll continue on where we do see things like, you know, some politicians being held accountable.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, for anybody who still hasn't watched it yet, fancy art whipped together at the last second, but it's pretty much sitting there on the channel. If you guys want to watch Jonathan Bertrand really break down the developments of the mining ecosystem in Quebec and kind of what's going on there, you know, I think it's, you know, really interesting to kind of hear things from a guy on the ground actually dealing with stuff, and especially when it comes to mining. Like there's just a lot of speculation and really kind of people talking out of their ass. And so like if you really want to hear, you know, what's going on from somebody actually involved in it, like go check this out if you haven't already.
Yeah, that was a good discussion. And yeah, hopefully we have a few more of those too.
All righty. So
all right, let's get into the mix. What's going on in the mix of stories?
Well, I don't know. Anybody feeling a little worked up?
I'm trying to calm back down. Are you gonna work me up again, man?
Nobody used a punching bag lately. Want to get some shots in?
All right, let's do it.
Well, I mean, I just want to say I'm like so worried for the hashes. Like, what are all the people who are using, you know, the anonymous addresses going to do? There's so many of them. Oh, my
yeah, it sounds like you took over the role of a robot.
Poop. Well, breaking news. Breaking news, everybody. Kraken is maybe contemplating the exploration of maybe adding over 1,600 new coins, pending the outcome of highly sophisticated review process. Look at all the potential opportunities to maybe make money off of shitcoin pumps, guys. Aren't you excited?
That's a great tweet. Yeah, it's a great tweet, Kraken. Like it.
But in all seriousness, though, Coinbase is actually seriously considering maybe listing and implementing Cardano, basic attention token, scam!
No, man.
Stellar, Ripple clone, scam! Zcash, and 0x, that platform on Ethereum that they bought a decentralized exchange a little while back on, so that they can start dumping all kinds of security tokens and shit without having legal liabilities. Because decentralized exchange.
Yeah. I'll let you go ahead, Janine. Let's see how your audio is doing now.
Yeah.
A little bit. Let's see how you go, and let's see.
Well, okay, so the joke that I tried to make earlier is about, you know, concern for all the
yeah, I'm afraid
like
it's too right.
Song. It's like a perfect rhythm.
Yeah, they're cutting you in and out with some beat bop there. All right, so she's gonna drop in and drop out. Hopefully her connection will get a little bit better. But yeah, is it any surprise why these 5 were chosen, right? I mean, like they're kind of the 5 with a big not community, but like a funding effort behind it. And you know, like yeah, the BAT tokens trying to be like some reward program for content, you know, content creators. And you know, the 0x thing I can't really speak that much about because I think you know, there's some guys here in town that I think are running that project, and you know, I try to get along with some people here on the ground. So I don't know how much I could say about that or the Cardano, but I mean, like these are projects that you know, have legitimate people behind them. I mean, not you know,
legitimate.
They're not like sock puppets, you know, pulling up a bunch of pump and dump scams. Like these things they can point at and say like, hey, there is a team working on Stellar, you know, like this guy, there is a team working on this, and they can point. I mean, like, you know, they're Coinbase. I mean, like they're not gonna just list Ripple. Because
I gotta do it. I gotta do it, Rick. Okay.
All right.
Cardano, it has delivered nothing except very fucking bold promises. BAT is a fucking complete scam. The platform is literally set up so that if somebody pays a content creator not on the platform, BAT just takes their money and decides what to do with it. Stellar is literally just a fucking Ripple clone. It is the exact same fucking laughable nonsense that Ripple is. Zcash, it's literally just a Bitcoin fork that's more unscalable because it doesn't have a UTXO set because of the privacy function that nobody uses. And 0x, like it's just another decentralized exchange scam on Ethereum. And like Coinbase literally just bought the company, I forget their name, using 0x to build a decentralized exchange for ICO tokens. So Coinbase,
yeah, I think it's Radar.
Yeah, but they bought that so that they could fucking list all the scam coins they're scared to directly list on Bitcoin because decentralized.
Yeah, I mean, like, I totally get it, man. I totally get it. But it is like, you know, next week I'm supposed to go to a meetup where Zoku's there, and then I'm just asked to maybe participate in a panel where Charles Hoskinson might be there. It's like, you know, I can't just like start screaming at the sky on this one. It's like I gotta really kind of play my cards right here because, like I've always said, it's like the Bitcoin community here is pretty small. We got a large Ethereum development community, which, you know, as much as it's all whatever, it's like I gotta let them do their thing and see if maybe I can't find something in there that, you know, we could use. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, you know, what's the use case for this? I don't know, but like, you know, you seem like, you know, there's a group here working on it, and I can physically talk to them. So, you know, I want to keep those relationships open and just sort of figure out what they're doing, and, you know, yeah, maybe there's something in there that I'm not seeing yet. So, you know, we'll get into these I'll get into these discussions here, and it'll be interesting.
Rick, it's okay. I'll do it for you, and I'll even do it in person the next time I come out to chill.
All right, man. Yeah, if you come out to chill, I'll try and get the gang together, and you could rally them face to face.
All right, want to give us a mic test, Jeannie?
Yeah. Am I still wrecked? Is it bad?
Success. No wreck.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. So, I mean, so the joke that I tried to make twice, Shinobi, you made now between my bad art. So the joke I was making was about, you know, how worried I was about the Zcash users, you know, because Coinbase explicitly says that they may not allow deposits or withdrawals to, you know, the anonymous Zcash addresses. So that's a big problem because, you know, Zcash is anonymous, right? The other thing that I can say, I have a personal story actually regarding Cardano, because I had the strangest experience meeting someone who, I don't know if he actually runs it, he might run it, but he is at least heavily invested in Cardano, and he was trying to persuade me to put my revision control journalism project on Cardano.
What?
So, yeah, missed opportunity. I don't know, Shinobi.
Like how? I barely know anything about it, but what I do know is they have a core layer right now that's just settlement. It's just moving money. They haven't even built a smart contract layer yet. How would you do that?
I don't know, Shinobi. But
I just my bags.
Yeah, apparently missed opportunity because Coinbase is about to list it when it doesn't even exist, really. So congratulations, Coinbase, I guess.
I guess they couldn't list Ripple, so they had to list all these guys. And you know, yeah, like I don't know, like I need to dig deep into Cardano and 0x. Like I feel like I've run through Zcash pretty well, but those two, like I definitely need to dig deeper on them. Like I'm saying, I'm talking to these guys on a fairly regular. They seem, you know, they're nice guys, but you know, I definitely you know, had some questions with that radar relay guy where mid conversation is like, I'm making this guy mad. I should probably stop.
Being a nice guy doesn't mean what you're doing is coherent in any way. Otherwise, Tiffany Hayden's tits would make her a genius.
All right, where are we going next, man?
All right, into the actual blog post. Otherwise, I would be a dickhead. Yeah, so blah 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 blah. Shit tokens. Potential scam that's going to get replaced by Lightning Network or Xiaomi and eCash tokens. Ripple clone scam. Not private, less scalable Bitcoin fork. ETH decentralized exchange scam, blah, blah, blah. Unlike adding Ethereum Classic, which is technically very similar to Ethereum, these assets will require additional exploratory work, and we cannot guarantee they will be listed for trading. Furthermore, our listing process may result in some of these assets being listed solely for customers to buy and sell without the ability to send or receive using a local wallet. What? Hey guys, we're just going to give you database entries to trade. You can't take control of them. You can't stop us from seizing them, but we'll take your money for them. And then, like Janine said, with Zcash not being able to use the private shielded addresses. And finally, some of these assets may be offered in jurisdictions other than the U.S. What does any of that have to do with the fact that Ethereum Classic is like just like Ethereum in a technical basis? Well, how does that have to do with anything to do with, you know, we might not let you withdraw or directly control their assets? Well, you have to integrate it. Like you have to integrate the actual currency to be able to manage the funds on another currency's network. So what does it being different from Ethereum have to do with we might not even let you withdraw it?
Well, I mean, my question is, you know, they point out, they choose to like point out Ethereum Classic because it's similar to Ethereum, but they don't point out Zcash being similar to Bitcoin being a problem, or Stellar being similar to Ripple being a problem. So, why picking on poor ETC there?
Yeah, I mean, aside from the shielded transaction stuff and maybe like part of the database querying, the API should be pretty much just like Bitcoin's. You just deal with the new functionality and bam, you're done. It's there. You guys can fucking give us money. And like, oh my God, like this is like hilarious. I mean, like Kraken, they nailed it. Like this, they fucking nailed the tone, the content. They are epic trolls.
Kraken and BitMEX are my two favorite exchanges right now. BitMEX Research and Kraken are just always kind of, you know, they're saying the right things.
Yeah, so this one actually tricked me. I thought Kraken was serious, and I was like, "Are you serious? You're going to add all of the coins on CoinMarketCap? What is wrong with you?" And then I was like, "Oh, it's a joke." Because because I hadn't actually read the Coinbase announcement, so I saw this one. I was like, "What the hell are you doing? What are there even 1,600 coins in existence?"
I can just imagine the traders being like, "Oh shoot, I better go grab a little bit of this and that all over the place." Yeah, it's I don't know, the whole ETC Coinbase thing. That thing's been going since its inception, man. It seems like, you know, whenever they fork, they support Ethereum, and then like you know, the whole just process of them saying like they were going to list them, and now this is, I don't know. Yeah, as far as like guys that don't get along, it's Coinbase and the ETC guys.
And I mean, it's like, Jesus Christ, it's like, it's so absurd. Like the level of hilarity in, like, we will list a shitcoin that we will take your money for, but we won't let you take that shitcoin. Like are you fucking kidding me? Like, why not just make up shitcoin, a database entry in Coinbase's database? We issue the supply. We completely control all of the coins and can freeze and confiscate them at any time, but we'll take your money for them.
Well, Shinobi, I mean, they know the truth. People don't really want the shitcoins. They just want to use them temporarily and then, you know, buy Bitcoin or completely cash out to some kind of fiat.
If by use, you mean use them to get idiots Bitcoin, yes.
That seems to be the only thing that I see going on.
It's just, it's so fucking absurd. Like, man. All right, got our punches in.
They're on their death spiral.
All right, so move on to the next punching bag.
Another one, yeah.
Lightning Network Cubs.
Oh my goodness.
Whoa. Oh my God, guys. Lightning Network is centralized. It got centralized, guys. They centralized it. There's one node with half of all the Bitcoins on the Lightning Network. What the hell are we going to do? Oh, yeah. He's going to jack his fees up to around 100 Satoshis. And then, oh yeah, people like my buddy are just going to look at all of his channels and open channels to the nodes he's connected to, where like the only channel they have open is to this giant super node, and he's going to charge less fees and make money.
Route around, buddy.
Sir Meow is literally doing that like right now. Like yesterday, he was trolling through this node, all of this node's channels, and just opening up like competing channels where he'll charge less fees. Congratulations. It's not centralized anymore.
Good job, Meow.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, this kind of proves, I mean, like, anyone can open a channel and put a stupid amount of money in it, which this guy put a stupid amount of money in it. Anyone can do that, and you don't need permission. So I guess it's not centralized or controlled by Blockstream or whatever, you know, group of people, maximalists or memers or whoever you want to say controls Bitcoin. No, apparently they weren't able to stop this guy from putting a stupid amount of money in a channel. You don't get any prizes for having half of the total amount of money in the entire Lightning Network in your channel.
I mean, it's brilliant. Like it got centralized. Like they killed it. It was done. And then, oh my God, it's decentralized again. We routed around it. But the real story, I think, here is that a guy working for Roger Ver at Bitcoin.com still has over $200,000 of Bitcoin. Why does he still have $200,000 of Bitcoin? It's Bcash. I thought Bcash was Bitcoin.
Not only does he have $220,000 of Bitcoin, he has enough like fuck you money to put in a completely experimental network that they think doesn't work.
Yeah, so he's probably got even more Bitcoin. Like I thought they all dumped their Bitcoin because Bcash was the real Bitcoin.
You know they won't do that, man. I mean, yeah, like seeing, you know, I mean, like, yeah, Roger's name associated with this, and like, you know, this is where it's like the same similar thing to the mining thing, right? It's like the information just lends itself to to that argument of like we're just wasting energy, where like you know, somebody like Roger could go in there and you know, spin up a node with that much Bitcoin, and it really kind of just lends itself to their argument. So good work, Meow, on showing like just like, you know, that's not really a good argument.
Lightning was centralized, decentralized. We laughed, we cried. Nothing really changed.
Tell you, man. Yeah, it's one day there are going to be you know, channels with that much Bitcoin in there. It's going to be like, you know, yeah, yeah, one day it's going to happen, man. We're going to see some real Lightning Network development happening on mainnet, and it's going to be like, oh man, this is a lot of money there. It's like, well, that's actual real economic activity. What?
Yeah, so let me just quickly point out another way that this kind of backfired from a PR standpoint. So they basically proved, I mean, I haven't heard of it. I assume it hasn't been hacked yet, which means that the Lightning Network is secure enough for a single individual to put $200,000 in a channel and not have it get hacked.
Great point.
I haven't even thought about that.
The Lightning Network is $200,000 secure, guys.
Roger always sort of like, I don't know. It's like all these arguments kind of come back. You know, you're either putting us in the spotlight and we're gaining attention, or yeah, it's like, you know, yeah, you're trying to point out something, but you kind of point out another thing too. So yeah, it's, goodness gracious, this is a weird space. We're gonna be doing this for a long while, I think.
Okay, so what did we learn today? Super big hub nodes can just trivially be routed around, so that doesn't matter. Lightning Network is secure enough to put $200,000 in a single node. And, oh yeah, Bcashers have no balls or conviction whatsoever and are probably all still holding on to their Bitcoin while they fucking whine and cry about Bcash all day.
It is something where it's like, I don't know, I regularly see posts on Twitter where someone is like comparing Bitcoin Cash fees to, you know, Bitcoin fees. And you know, like I always see Roger, whenever I do watch some of his content, he's just trying to, he gets so mad about Lightning. He's just like, nah, it's not going to work. Like, can you do this? Can you? And he tries to, you know, point at it, but it's like, yeah, it's obviously, I don't know, something that's going to, if they don't, yeah, I don't know. Lightning seems to be like the answer. I don't know. That whole just increase the block size thing, not the answer.
See, that's what I find so funny, because I forget if it was 2016 or 2017, but Roger, Tonevase, and Johnny were all on a podcast in Texas where they actually were talking about like Lightning and zero confirmation transactions and so on. And Roger, he said he loved Lightning. Like it was a really cool thing, and he was excited to see it, you know, get rolled out and the new use cases it could enable. But oh my God, the second it's here, it's banks, it's going fractional reserve, Blockstream Core, blah 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 blah. So in other words, when he was trying to give platitudes about Lightning and not attack it early on before it was here, he was completely full of shit and lying through his teeth.
Sounds like 2015, Roger.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think we've got our laughs. You know, we've got our nice demonstratable information out of this.
Wait, not yet.
What's
You have to show his Twitter account. Look at all the channel connections he's got around him in his header picture.
He's a playboy.
And he's definitely milking this news, as you can see by all of the tweets. To make the Lightning Network truly decentralized, we must first become the Lightning Network. Okay.
Just for the audio-only listeners, this header is like him surrounded by like 3 girls kissing him. And yeah, I imagine... yeah, it's just like, I don't know. It seems like that's what you see from the Bcash crew, like that. What was that yacht picture where it was like everybody just surrounded with some girls? And yeah, there's always those Bitcoin.com booth babes. It's like they play to, you know, your senses that aren't your intellect.
To prove that the Lightning Network is truly insecure vaporware in violation of Satoshi's true vision, we must first put Satoshi's not true vision worth $200,000 in it.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Sliding along. So this is fucking awesome. Cheapair, after dealing with their Coinbase service being cut off, which we covered a while back, had everybody start flooding them with fucking points to BTCPayServer in the wake of that. They have implemented it.
Nice.
They've apparently been spending the last month or so doing testing and integrating, and actually specifically give a shout out to Nicholas Dorier, Predrag T, and everybody else contributing to BTCPayServer. You've built a truly great product, in their words. And they've literally here, where is it? We find it really liberating to no longer be dependent on a third party. We now have much more control of the process, which has been made possible faster, more efficient order processing. So yeah, this works. This isn't like, not to disparage like Bitcoin users with like small shops and things like that online, but like this is an actual company that has just integrated BTCPayServer. They are directly accepting Bitcoin to their own addresses. They are in complete control of how and when they will liquidate any of that to pay their services. And they've also set up a specific cryptocurrency customer support now because they have complete control over their backend system. They don't have to go cry to Coinbase or cry to BitPay when something goes wrong and leave customers sitting there waiting for them to get back from BitPay or pawning them off on BitPay with all kinds of extra frictions and delays and users' money hanging in limbo. They're in control. They can directly handle any problems with payments themselves. Faster customer support, more reliable customer support, and customer support that is not dependent on a complete third party that a customer is just forced into interacting with and being dependent on when something goes wrong. Like this is fucking huge. Like this is really showing that a corporation can literally be their own payment processor.
Yeah, like I don't know, similar to funding that hub. It's like, you're kind of showing an aspect where it's like something that wasn't really that much front and center, where it's like, now that amount's there, you could say like, well, that amount's secure. And you can also sort of say, well, this route's around this way. It's like, BitPay introduced that BIP 70 and, started leaning customers towards Bcash and everything. And, that BTCPayServer was something really interesting whenever that API got put out. It's like the idea of it is like, oh, that's cool. And yeah, to see Cheapair, pick that up and run with it is great because like Cheapair is one of those, one of those vendors I hear a lot about, Bitcoiners, you're flying here to there to maybe different conferences or to meetings and to be able to, use your Bitcoin and get a discount and all that sort of stuff. I mean, like, yeah, it's one of those things where, I've heard people before, this is where, they do spend some of their coin. It's like, whenever they're flying here and there. And so, it's just great to see like somebody pick up that API and actually do something with it where they're not, they're not relying on BitPay anymore.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, just like wait till Lightning, or like, wait, are they still working? Now, okay, now I feel stupid. I don't even remember if it's still a work in progress or they've actually they finished Lightning integration with the C Lightning plugin, didn't they?
For BTC Pay?
Okay, all right. Hold on, guys. I have found myself unaware of something. I have to find the answer. I am neurotic.
All right, man. What are you trying to figure out if they could integrate some Lightning with that?
Shinobi, don't you know that when you're unaware of something, you just keep talking anyway because someone will think you're a genius?
That's not.
We don't do that here.
Okay. I think they actually have. I found a tweet from January where they said the next stable version will include Lightning Network. So I'm not 100% positive. Forgive my stupidity and bad memory, but I think they have.
How about that, man? That would, yeah. I mean, like, yeah, this is where it's like, I really feel like we will start to see some real economic activity on Lightning Network not too far from now. It's awesome.
Okay, I'm continuing to be neurotic. I needed to finish.
But you just need confirmation that it's there. I mean, like, that would be pretty damn interesting. Like, you would use your BitPay card for a Lightning Network transaction. Seems like every one of those demos I've seen has been like, you know, cell phone to a screen. And so, yeah, it'd be interesting to see Lightning payment transactions going through a card.
All right, I think they have.
Man, let's get some Cheapair flights. I don't know. I need to fly somewhere.
All right, yep, they have. Okay, awesome. My neuroticism can now be put to rest.
All right, man. So yeah, BTCPayServer kicking butt, man. Good job, guys.
And a little tack on to this. People were immediately going, Namecheap, why aren't you doing this? And so whoever's operating the Namecheap Twitter account thanked everybody and said they forwarded it to the appropriate department. So, I mean, hopefully we see some developments from Namecheap as well. I recently had to use them and fuck BitPay. Like the fact that I had to go through, find a third-party tool to deconstruct their retarded fucking payment request to actually make the payment was really fucking irritating. And yeah, stop fucking using BitPay, Namecheap.
This is going to be such an awesome year. I can't even imagine like a year from now. Just thinking about, yeah, there's going to be people. I don't know. It's going to be awesome. I don't want to go too much into it.
All right. So getting up to the 20-minute mark. Got 2 stories left. Think we can make it, guys?
Yeah, man. What's going on with these last 2? I need to check.
All right. So I am slightly confused by this. Last we talked about Alexander Vinnik, the operator of BTCE. The Greek Supreme Court had approved an extradition to the U.S. Apparently, a Greek court just approved a extradition to France instead. So, kind of confusing. It seems there is now a third pole in the tug of war over people who want Vinnik extradited to their jurisdiction.
Right, I thought it was Russia, but yeah, that's 3.
Now it's U.S., Russia, and France. And I want to remind everybody that there was actually an attempt to assassinate him while in Greek custody. And he's currently applying for asylum in Greece right now, which has to be decided on before the extradition is actually carried out. But like, this is getting strange. Like, it's like, you know, it's clear why the U.S. wants him. Like, doing a massive money laundering operation involved in the Mt. Gox hacks, ties to all kinds of darknet money. France, it appears a similar kind of reasoning. And Russia could say the same, but I personally have suspicions there's a little more nefarious reasons why people in Russia might want him extradited.
He is Russian, right?
But yeah, it's really kind of strange that this is still going on with this level of tug of war, and especially considering the fact that people literally tried to kill him while in Greek custody, which, again, you know, my suspicions with Russia is kind of like, why would you do that? Like, Russia is attempting to have him extradited where he would agree to testify. So who does not want him testifying, and what do they not want him testifying about?
Yeah, that's a lot of speculation there. Because I mean, like, the main thing, like you're saying, like, I can understand the U.S. you want it because of just the amount of anonymous activity going on. But yeah, the Russian and France, it's kind of I don't know. It's up in the air for me. It's one of those things. Like this is like the long game stuff where it's like we just gotta keep our eye on it as it develops and see what's going on. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. Assassination attempt, 3 separate countries trying to get you. It's kind of worrying, man.
And it's just like it's a weird kind of nexus of things, you know. Like no para while he was still on the show with us, kind of pointed out a litany of evidence suggesting he is potentially like the actual Mt. Gox hacker. Like he was clearly involved in laundering funds from the hack through BTCE. There's obvious connections with darknet markets and money flowing through that. It's just like he is just like this weird focal point of like so much of the shady shit that happened in this space like early in Bitcoin's history. And it's like, you know, we've seen a lot of it kind of come to light, but there's still a lot of uncertainty and just weird questions there, at least from my point of view, especially with like the dynamic in these jurisdictions pretty much just fighting over like who's going to actually get him.
Yeah, it's almost like, yeah, just who's going to get a piece of that Bitcoin pie?
Mm-hmm. Do you need anything to say on this one? I think we're going to wind up having an early close today.
Well, I'm just going to once again say parlez-vous français.
Okay, for those wondering, I put my foot down and I was a tyrant today about the title. Janine fought for another title, and I decided to play dictator and not allow
it. I was gonna do all of this like French wordplay because, you know, Ledger is a French company, and it's like parler français because France is currently doing this leather kicking thing, and then Russia, so I put in parler Russie, which I have no idea if that's correct pronunciation in French of Russia, but okay.
Yeah, it was
it's all French to me.
It was one of those heady titles where I'm sure people on Twitter have been like, what are they talking about? Where yeah, that the KGB story is pretty direct. Like that headline story is just so bonkers stupid, honestly. It's like whenever you start to see the name wrapped up in the other names and the level of the story, that thing's been running for 2 years. It's just okay, yeah, titles.
Just wait. You will be happy with this title when people in Congress start saying that Russia made Bitcoin. It'll make sense then.
Well, I think our next 3 titles are going to be French, though.
All right, slide into the last story. Kind of just a little bit of an update about what's going on in India since the fiat interaction between banks and exchanges went into effect the day after 4th of July. Pretty much seems like most of the exchanges have kind of just pivoted to crypto only trading. And so like as far as actually moving new money into the space, like this really kind of leaves people limited to, you know, things like BISC or local Bitcoins, you know, things that generally trade at a bit of a premium, or in the case of like peer-to-peer trading, like local Bitcoins could potentially come with like actual risks to physical safety, or, you know, potential, as we've seen over and over again in the US, for legal entrapment and things along those lines. You know, but it's kind of really shit. And then as far as like the actual exchanges point of view, like this is a big hit because you're kind of introducing that extra hop and extra friction in that if people want to put fiat into the ecosystem, like they're going to have to use something like Paxful, local Bitcoins, or BISC, and all of the exchanges in India are losing the revenue they would make, you know, facilitating those trades themselves. And then like that's, you know, kind of a disincentive to really do that. And then because they can only trade crypto to crypto now, they're pretty much have that extra friction for new liquidity coming in, and only have like the people who already have cryptocurrencies or who are willing to go through that extra hop to like trade, well, not only go through that extra hop, but go through that extra hop and want to trade other cryptocurrencies than Bitcoin to really like generate revenue off of. And so this is really like putting them in a fucking pinch. Like it might work for a little while now, but like this is by no means like sustainable from a business point of view. You know, as one of the CEOs, which exchange was it? Crap. Brain fuck. Okay. Okay, my eyes are fucked. Praveen Kumar, CEO of Belfrix. Like, you know, when you're doing crypto to crypto only, that's heavier competition because there's no jurisdictional limitations there. Like, you're competing with all of the crypto to crypto exchanges in the whole world, and that's a big hit in terms of the level of competition they have to deal with. And so like this is really a big squeeze for all the exchanges in India as far as their revenue and long-term sustainability. And I mean, like there's still a pending Supreme Court case coming up on the 20th to kind of challenge like the restrictions put in place by the central bank in India. But you know, given the fact that courts weren't willing to order a stay and actually let this restriction go into place, like I'm not really sure how to think this would play out. And so like this court case coming up, you know, I don't really feel comfortable making any kind of call one way or another, the likely outcome and potential regulations being announced this month. So, I mean, like, this could really squeeze the shit out of exchanges in India to the point where it's not really viable for them to keep their operations open for long. I mean, it sucks. I mean, you know, instead of looking at this, what are we doing on crypto Twitter? We're bitching about a hashtag.
Yeah, I mean, like this is like whenever we did the story, I think it was last episode or maybe one before that where we were talking about this. It was like we didn't really know what was going to happen. They didn't know, and it was a lot of people in India were feeling uncertain about the situation. But I know that they also felt you know, confident that they were going to find a way around the situation, and it looks like you know, that's what's going on right now as far as you know, doing this strictly crypto to crypto exchanging. But hopefully it's just temporary, and you know, hopefully India is going to come up with some smart, you know, regulation that's going to, you know, keep that innovation moving forward in a place, because, you know, India is one of those nations that's kind of already started their little currency war with the populace, kind of like you know, taking some notes out of the rotation and kind of hurt some people. So it's kind of up in the air, and it's a question mark. But no matter what, I think we're going to find an answer. But hopefully things will turn out all right after that hearing. Yeah, it looks like we lost Janine right at the end. Did she leave us some final thoughts and take off, or did she lose her connection?
Janine, we can't go through your thoughts without you. It's like brain rape.
Oh, there she is. All right. I thought you were just like leaving your thoughts with us, and you were like, I gotta go. Oh man, she is.
No.
All right, so audio listeners, guys, she's been dropping in and dropping out. Well, look, let's do my final thought. Like, but that was that about what you were thinking? All right, well, let's do this final thought, because anybody who's been watching us for the past couple hours, they missed this, and it looks like old Francais did something on the global scale that's pretty big. So let's see if we could play just the first couple seconds of that.
I think my browser is going to be stupid about the video. Let's see. Nope. Wait, there. There we go. I kick a ball with my foot.
Well, we don't have audio, but France won the World Cup, people. So the World Cup, it's been going on, and it looks like France won 4-2 against Croatia. So there's a final thought. Hopefully next year I could be watching it a little bit more. This is one of those events that I try to keep up with, but it's like hard because the timing, it's like over there, and so it's early morning here when it comes on and stuff. So yeah, it's a good thing. Good job, France. You know, got all the way through it. Good job. Yes.
Next year, I'm gonna kick the ball with my foot.
What is that? An Italian baker soccer player or football player?
I don't know. There is no rhyme or reason behind my funny voices.
Wait, so I'm gone for like a minute because I have computer issues, and I come back and you're watching football?
We had to change the channel real quick.
We slid into thoughts. But real quick, though, one last thing I kind of glossed over because my eyes suck at finding things. One exchange in India, Coin Delta, is trying to build out a peer-to-peer exchange called Flux. And so, I wish them the best of luck. And if that works, hopefully other exchanges can emulate. But back to final thought time.
But yeah, it was just like France won the World Cup while we were doing the show. So had to do the final thought and let everybody know what's going on. But yeah, I think we got some final thoughts. A year's loaded up. Let's see what you want to tell us.
Loading first one now. Go,
sorry. Yeah, so everyone in the chat box is like telling us to talk about Fluffy Pony and his watches for some reason, but I thought this was way more interesting. Apparently Monero was actually mentioned on a television show called Queen of the South. I think it's a crime thriller in the US. And one of the scenes, there actually is a clip of it too if you want to try playing that. But there's a scene where they mention Monero in regards to, and also other cryptocurrencies. So if you go to the second tweet that I gave you, there's actually a clip that you can play.
Hold on un momento. Where's the thing? Do the thing.
The process. It's too low for me. I can't hear it. But I guess in that scene they mentioned Monero.
Chatty Cathy. That's crypto on TV is cringe. Like I have not seen a non-cringe crypto on TV thing.
It really starts to look at all this stuff too. It's like, yeah, it's just like the zeitgeist is picking it up and throwing it in there everywhere it can. So yeah, we're the popular dudes, crypto. Not Bitcoin. Well, not Bitcoin anymore. Now it's Monero and Ethereum are the ones that are getting they're jumping in with us.
I am a handsome and dangerous Mexican drug dealer, and I use cryptocurrency.
Yeah. So I don't know if I said this at the introduction, but the reason this was significant, well, obviously they also mentioned Bitcoin and Ethereum for some reason because drug lords would want to use Ethereum. Haven't seen that yet, except for the actual people making it.
Oh man.
The reason it was significant was because it was the first mention of Monero in a television show. So, yay, apparently.
All right. Monero, I've seen him on TV all the time, just not TV shows. I don't know, man. Who watches TV shows anymore? I mean, like, really, I guess it's like grandma's learning about Monero now. Especially USA. All right, guys.
All right. Any more straggling thoughts before we call it a day?
Just need to take a breather.
All right. Of course, Janine has some. Dun-dun-dun. Go.
Yeah, so you guys may have heard about this whole Plane Bay thing that happened, I think it was last week or in the last 2 weeks. I thought it was pretty horrifying for anyone who didn't see it because the thread is now gone. There was basically this woman named Rosie Blair who gave up her seat to a random plane passenger And then when she realized that they were having a conversation and seemed to like each other, she proceeded to tweet about their conversation and then followed them around even after the plane landed and was encouraging her followers to find out who they were because she thought that they were going to be part of an epic love story and that she was a part of it because she gave up her seat and started the whole thing, like classic Americanized rom-com. Well, the conclusion of that was that it was not really that romantic. The supermodel dude and also the woman who did the tweet storm thought it would be a good idea to go on all these morning shows about how romantic this was, and it turns out that the woman was shamed, insulted, and harassed. She was doxxed by people who were so obsessed with the idea of her being some kind of they were calling her pretty plain girl. They were so obsessed with her that they decided to continue to violate her privacy, and she refused to go on any television shows. She has asked that her name is not being used in those shows, and she does not want to be interviewed. And the only statement she has given was through a lawyer saying, "Please leave me alone." So, like, Jesus.
What the fuck, Janine? Like, that's so fucked up. I mean, dude, your personal life is my fucking entertainment. Like, who the fuck are you to tell me you want your privacy and don't want your fucking name thrown all over the place on social media and the news? Fuck you. I want to be entertained.
This is whenever we really start to see the monkey come out, man. It's like, we don't know what we're doing with this tech yet. At least some people, you know, it's like, man, the fur just fell off us not too long ago.
Yeah, so the reason I wanted to share this is because though it may be an extreme example, because not every person who, you know, decides to violate another person's privacy for internet points ends up being part of a viral thread and a hashtag, but this kind of thing happens on a daily basis. I have to deal with people like this woman who just, they think it's okay to just take pictures of people in public, even when you're literally wearing a button on your shirt saying "do not take pictures of me." And as a person who has worked very hard to keep my face off the internet, I find these people to be the plague of my earth. So if you are if you are ever in a situation where you want to take crowd shots or pictures of people because they're doing something that's entertaining, consider how you would feel if you were on the other end of the camera, and don't do that.
Or just do like the normal civil thing that a person who's not an asshole would do. Ask them.
It's just, yeah, I don't know, man. It's, yeah, that's not, yeah, dude, we're just in a different time. I mean, like, you know, it kind of just harps back to like people running wild with like any sort of story that they see, and there's like a misconception, and all of a sudden the person at the center of it is just, you know, threatened for their life, and there's people throwing eggs at their door, and it's just, it's awful, man. Like we're not really, we're still figuring out how to use this stuff, and there's definitely some people out there that they just don't understand what they're, I mean, I really feel like she just didn't understand what she was doing. I don't know if she really understood, like when she was tweeting that out, that she was tweeting this personal people's story. I think she was tweeting of like, oh, well, this is what I'm seeing. This is my life. This is my film. And I'm just going to tell people about it. And I'm not really going to be aware of the fact that I'm giving away people's private information. At least I hope so. I don't know. Maybe it has gotten that bad that they just don't care.
Yeah. You got any last word on that before we call it a day, Gene?
I mean, I have one last thought. To harken back to the headline story of the day.
Oh my God. I'm not going to say anything. This is it. I'm done. Later, folks.
Yeah, so my ending thought of the day is, and by the way, before you go off and troll this person, he is a lawyer. He's a very ironic lawyer, and he is willing to troll people. So my last thought is, thank God the United States has never interfered with elections.
Yep, we are perfect. Never done anything wrong. America. And on that note, though, I guess we will see you guys on Wednesday, and we might barring confirmation from somebody, have another special edition for you this week. But until Wednesday, toodaloo.
Later, everyone.
Au revoir.